Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be working on my hose faucet on the outside of my house. So right here you can see when the hose is on, this faucet sprays everywhere. It makes a huge mess and gets a lot of water everywhere. So that's just a waste of water and it's making a muddy mess below this hose. So I'm going to replace this and show you guys how to do that. Now this project I'm probably going to do a little bit more than you guys will because I have a big mess right here with some old washer and dryer hookups that aren't being used. These valves hardly shut off as it is. I'm just going to take these out and put in a new line to the hose and replace all this copper line with new PEX tubing. So what I need to do first before I start cutting into this is find the shutoff valve for the hot and cold lines because I'm going to be cutting both, but you'll probably only need to shut off the cold. Now finding these sometimes can be pretty difficult. Here's a couple valves just for the hot line coming into the house. I need to find the cold line though. The only one that is in line for this hose is at the street. This is the main shutoff that I've got coming into the house. And that's a problem. I'm gonna actually install a valve right before it goes outside for the hose. That way I can easily shut that off. It doesn't freeze during the winter. It's already drained. There's no water in it to freeze. Now that I have the water shut off, I'm going to start cutting and taking out the copper pipe that I don't need and is in the way now. And this copper pipe is actually, I think it's like 60 or 70 years old now, and it's getting pretty corroded inside, pretty nasty. So I'm actually going to be replacing all of the copper lines in our house with PEX tubing. Now a few wings like the master bathroom you see right there with the red pipe, that whole section going into the master bathroom has been already redone. Now I need to start working on the rest of the house and fixing it as I go along. Now a quick tip, before you start cutting into these pipes, even though the water's off, there still is going to be a lot of water in the lines that's going to drain out slowly as you cut into this. So if you don't want to get soaked and you don't want everything around you to get wet, just hold that 5-gallon bucket underneath while you're cutting it and it'll catch all that water. Now once I've cut the pipes, I'm actually going to sand these down, make sure there's a smooth edge, because I'm using these shark bite fittings to connect the copper and PEX together. These things are amazing. Now these are a little pricey, more than the other fittings, but it works really well when you're transitioning from copper to PEX. It seals with both of those and works really well. The key is making sure that it slides all the way into place. You want to make sure that you're pushing really hard together so that it slides into that fitting. Now for everything else that's PEX, I'm going to be using the normal PEX fittings with the rings that clamp down on the tubing to make sure that it seals. So basically you have a special clamp right here that goes over top of that ring and tightens down on that and seals the tubing to the fitting. Now the tool itself is pretty expensive. If you're going to actually use it quite a bit, I've been using a lot in the house replacing some plumbing, so it's a good investment if you're going to be doing more plumbing in the future. If not, getting those shark bite fittings might be a good option. You might save some money just if you're replacing a small section and you don't want to deal with it. Now they can be temporary, you can take them off and reuse those shark bite fittings, but they also will last a good while as well. I haven't had any leak and I've had them in my house a couple years for some of them. Now the one that I install is going to be temporary because I am going to replace that copper line in the next year or so, but it definitely lasts a long time if you need it to. Now, PEX tubing eventually, with the weight of the water in it, can start to sag if you don't put clamps in it or pipe strapping to hold it up in place. So I'm going to put in a couple of these clips. They just snap onto the PEX tubing and has a single nail that nails up into the rafters right here. And this will hold it in place and keep it from drooping down at all. Now this section might be a little closer to what you're going to be doing. Right below this is where the hose goes through the wall. So I'm going to run this pipe down the wall and out the side. I'm going to be installing this ball valve like I mentioned earlier. I want to make sure that I can shut off the water to the hose outside so that when it's the winter time I can turn on that valve outside, turn off this one, drain out the water, and make sure it doesn't freeze and break that valve outside. So I'm going to put in that valve real quick. Really easy to do, and it makes it really nice if you ever have to work on that valve again. You don't have to shut off the whole house just to work on it, and it keeps it from freezing. Now I'm going to put a couple clips to hold this onto the wall and keep it from moving around at all. So I'm going to drill this out with a cement drill bit and put a dowel in there to screw to. And I'm actually going to be using a conduit clamp that holds conduit up against the wall. It works really well for this. I'm sure they probably make something for PEX tubing to hold it up against the wall, but this is what I had already in my shop. It works really well, and I thought I'd use up what I have instead of buying more. Now I've got everything else hooked up. I just need to send the pipe through the wall and start hooking up the valve on the outside. Now I'm gonna make this a little bit longer than it needs to be. It'll stick out the other side about 6 to 8 inches. It's better to have a little extra than too little and have to replace it and get a different pipe. So I'm gonna put this on, send it through the wall. I'm actually going to spray some spray foam around this because the hole is way bigger than the pipe that they put in here originally. I'm not sure why that is, so I'm just going to fill that up with spray foam, make sure there's no leak from the cold air coming inside right there during the winter, and no bugs getting in the house through that hole. Now once you're done with the job and the spray foam has hardened, you can come back with the blade and cut that off, all the excess, and clean it up a little bit. It makes it look so much better. Now because the hole was so big on the outside as well, it's way bigger than the pipe, there's no place to mount the valve, so I'm going to be putting a board on the outside to mount the valve to. Now a really easy tip to know where to drill out with your cement drill bit to put the plastic taps in to screw this to the wall. If you put the screws in the board ahead of time, once you pre-drill, put the screws in, have them stick out the other side maybe 1/4 of an inch. You line up the board where it needs to go and tap on it with a hammer, and that will mark all the places that you need to drill really easily. And that way, once you drill those out, put the plastic taps in, you know that board's going to line up exactly where it needs to go, and you're not going to have any issues. Now I've got the holes drilled out. I just need to put the plastic taps into the holes, and then I can screw this to the wall. Now for the valve on the outside, I'm also going to be using a shark bite valve here. This works really well. It just slides into place and then you're done. So what you need to do is make sure that you have at least probably 3/4 of an inch of pipe sticking out on the outside of the house. So I'm going to cut off all the excess that I don't need. That gives me enough room to slide this valve on. Now if this is going straight through the wall, you'll want to make sure someone's holding it on the other side. That way you know for sure the pipe has gone all the way into the fitting and has sealed completely. Next, I'm going to mount the valve to the board with a couple nails, and this will hold it in place and keep it stable. Now everything's hooked up, you can go turn on the water, test it out, make sure that you did a good job and there are no leaks. So I've gone through, checked everything, it looks great. Now all I need to do is to seal up this board up against the brick. I'm going to get some caulking and to seal up around the corners, and then once that dries I'm going to come back with the exterior paint that we use to paint the brick on our house, and I'm going to paint over that pressure treated board and completely cover that up. It'll blend in with the wall and look really nice. Alright guys, that just about finishes up the video for today. I hope this was helpful for you. I know having a leaky faucet like this can be very aggravating, and it can be intimidating to jump into a project like this. So I hope you found this helpful, and maybe you can knock this out yourself and not have to pay someone to do it for you. Now if you like this video, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button down below. That helps me out a ton. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. I'd also love to hear what you guys thought, so leave any comments you have down in the comment section and any suggestions or questions you have. Thanks guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.